Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to bring back one of our champions. We've interviewed him a few times over the years of doing these shows. And since we last spoke, the companies have grown, the holding companies have grown, the employee load has grown, and this guy is scaling through acquisitions. And I want to bring him in to ask him some questions on how he did it. Jude, welcome back to the Deal Scout.
Hey Josh, thanks for having me back.
Yeah. All right. So give us some updates on what we've accomplished together. Well, you and I just interviewed you about it. But what have you accomplished since the last time we spoke?
Well, since the last time we spoke, we were a relatively small door and window business. We had acquired, I think, at that point, three door and window companies, and we were just starting to launch a platform called Stately Doors and Windows. The idea of that platform being we want to target ultra luxury, the highest end homes, $10 million plus homes all across the country, with doors and windows that are purely bespoke. Every door and window is not just custom. We don't just do custom sizes. It's bespoke, as in think up anything brand new that's never been built before, and we'll do the R&D and design it and make something really remarkable. And we do. We have all kinds of sunken door systems that sink into the basement like a car window, or we have all kinds of recessed things and automated things, and it's really cool stuff to work with. And we can do that because we're manufacturing here in the United States, and we're doing it for people that cost isn't really an object. But since then, we've done a handful of additional acquisitions. Most recently, we acquired Pella Doors and Windows luxury division, which was a really big get for us. It allowed us to double the size of the company again. So we're at around 400 employees, around 100 million in revenue. Right on track for that $1 billion in revenue mark by year 7, like we were hoping to see. So really exciting to see the growth. Couldn't do it without a really awesome team, though.
Yeah. So you have multiple groups that help accomplish this, and you're kind of the tip of the spear. Why don't you kind of give us an idea of the different components? So you got Final Ascent, you've got the King Capital, and I believe there's one more that I might be missing, the Stately, right?
Yep. So Stately is the portfolio company for Ken Capital. Ken Capital is our acquisition company, and that's one kind of cohesive team. I've got a great group of executive level talent that's got some ops experience, manufacturing experience, and deal experience that we put together to really build a series of acquisitions and grow this thing. I'm really fortunate because I sit in the acquisition part of the business where I get to be really excited about whatever's new and shiny that dangles in front of my face. And then I get those acquisitions done and I hand it over to the ops team and I say, good luck, I'm on to the next one. So it's great being a deal guy and moving on to the next deal and being done with that. Totally separate business, separate team is Final Ascent, which is the investment bank that I've had since 2017 now. It's a group that is really focused on helping business owners to sell their businesses. And I was in merger and acquisition law before I did that, started the investment bank, been doing that for a long time now. And then I'm on the buy side myself with Ken Capital and Stately. So I've really seen every aspect, every angle of deal transactions. I'm not saying I'm the only one out there that you'll find that has that diverse of experience, but there's certainly not too many of us. So, I'm usually able to view the different angles of a transaction because of that experience. And really awesome team there too. The idea behind Final Ascent was we wanted to have real deal makers and professionals in charge of our investment bank. We wanted people that had been down this road before, had bought and sold companies, really understood the things that are going to face a business owner through the sale process, so we can coach them through it the right way. I always say, 90% of the deal is about personalities, and you got to be able to manage those really well to get them to the finish line.
Yeah, for sure. So Final Ascent. I mean, I could picture what Final Ascent is. I'm building a business. I'm doing my Final Ascent. I exit when I hit the top, cash out.
Yep.
hang out with the wife on the beach, right? Is that kind of where the terminology comes from?
Yeah, it was a metaphor to a mountain climbing term. I don't know if you know anything about mountain climbing, but
I'm in Florida. I do not.
yeah,
You can
so
fill us
like
in.
think of like a K2 or Everest or one of those. You're going to get up to base camp, and like just about anybody can make that hike to get up most of the way up the mountain. But that final ascent, that last part, that's where you really need a guide because it's very treacherous, and a lot of people die making that last little ascent up the mountain. And I look at it the same way. I love dealing with business owners. They are awesome people. They tend to be able to do anything and everything. You put any obstacle in their path, they're going to roll up their sleeves and figure out how to deal with it. And they often feel the same way about their exit. They've figured out how to do everything up until the time of the exit, and they assume that it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and figure out how to do it myself. And it's really not like that. It's like, you're playing checkers and the other guys are playing three-dimensional chess. There's all these different things that are happening behind the scenes in a merger or an acquisition. And the business owner doesn't even see it because they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know about working capital and how that's going to affect the transaction. And, they don't know about the legal traps that they're going to fall into because, they haven't planned that out at the LOI stage. And, the cash flow management needs heading up into the closing and how that's going to affect their take home pay. And so whenever you have a skilled advisor who's done it 1,000 times before, sure, they're going to be able to guide you through every aspect, move the pieces on every chessboard all at the same time. But, if you haven't done it before, you may think you're winning only to get on the backside and figure out you really left a lot on the table. And so that's the goal for us. We want to give that holistic approach, really help our clients to understand. Best thing I can do to advise you and give you the knowledge you need to make the right decisions along the way.
You went to school to become an attorney, a lawyer, right? That's what you went to school. What did you think you
Yeah.
were going to do when you were going to school to study law?
Well, what's funny is I always wanted to be a deal guy. Mergers and acquisitions always interested me. And then, like 2007, I'm getting towards the end of college, ready to go out into the world, and the housing market starts collapsing, and the stock market's tanking, and everybody's getting laid off from Lehman and Goldman and all the big firms. And I'm going, oh, geez, there's not going to be an investment banking job in the world available. And if there is one, I'm going to compete against somebody who's been doing it for 20 years because they just got laid off, and there's going to be plenty of them out on the market. So I decided, okay, I got to pivot here a little bit. Let me go back to law school. I'm going to gain a whole different skill set that most investment bankers aren't going to have, like really an understanding of law and the traps of the deal, that can befall you along the way. I did an MBA at the same time, so figured I'd expand on my financial knowledge that way as well. Really expand my accounting knowledge as well. I wanted to make sure I could really read P&Ls and balance sheets backwards and forwards and kind of be able to dig into the transaction level data on those. And that was very useful. Unfortunately, it set me up for years of practicing law after school, which is, thankless and very difficult work. It kind of kills your soul a little bit day by day. That's okay though. It was a fantastic experience. I did a tremendous number of M&A deals from the legal perspective, and that part was really exciting. On the downside, whenever things start to get a little bit hot or go down the wrong direction, you see the worst side of people practicing law. And so that's why I really love the move from law into investment banking. I get to see people on their best day in investment banking, and that's a lot more fun.
So if while studying, do you think that if you knew that piece of, man, you're going to be doing a ton of transactions, like it's good training, a good experience there, but if you could look back and if you knew it was going to be that kind of dredge and you had the opportunity, would you still do it to get that wisdom or knowledge, or would you have bypassed that and spent those years doing something else?
Well, look, if I had graduated in 2006, hindsight or no hindsight, I would have gone straight into investment banking. You weren't going to send me to law school and tie me up for several years. I look backwards, kind of in hindsight, at was the experience worth it? I don't know. I feel like my industry, you don't have to have that experience to do what you do. Although I feel like deal after deal, you don't even realize it, all the knowledge you've accumulated along the way and all the skills you've picked up along the way. But I'll say things or I'll make decisions in deals, and my team will tell me, wait, that doesn't make any sense because of this, that. And I go, well, wait. But no, think of it this way. This is what's going to happen next. And they go, man, I would have never even thought that was a possibility. And so I tend to recognize things that a lot of investment bankers don't see just because I've got a different lens on it or a different angle on it. And there's no way to quantify that to say where that came from. It's a lot of deal experience, and most of that deal experience came from practicing law. So I'm thankful to have it. Definitely got me where I am today.
Yeah. So now you've got this holdco. You're building this group of businesses, and you're doing a service for other people, right? So why are you doing this magnitude? Like, why is that important to you, and what are you really trying to accomplish here?
That's a great question, because for most people, the answer would be money. Like they want to see the money accumulate. And it's really not the reason I do it. I mean, money's great. Yeah, everybody wants to make money, sure. But I love crafting a vision and then executing on that vision well. And, you know, in every aspect of success in life, you're always going to go a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And we've managed to have small successes and a little bit bigger successes and bigger ones. Done a lot of deals in my career. I'm up for new challenges, and I'm always looking to push myself a little bit further and self-actualize a little bit more. And so, something I've never done is build $1 billion company. I've built $100 million company now, which is pretty exciting, but I've never built $1 billion company. And so that's the next challenge on the horizon. And we've got a real path to do it over the next 3 years. And so that's really exciting. I can't wait to, get to that level. And then you're going to ask me what the challenge is next. It's like, oh, you've made it far. No. There's going to be a target beyond that.
Be
But
something else for sure.
it's not a money thing or a greed thing or anything else. Like, I mean, you could take away all the money today and I'd still want to do this.
Yeah. Now, what do you think caused that drive in you? Like, I love studying the psychology of deal makers and why they push. I've interviewed billionaires, I've interviewed all sorts of like people, even pastors, and all sorts of people, through these channels. And I want to know what makes you tick. Like, I love making a deal, love creating the vision, love seeing it execution. But why, right? Why are we building towards $1 billion? What do you think drives you?
It's all of those things you just said, but I think they boil down to really one thing, which is a lifelong love of learning. I always want to learn how to do things better, and expand my horizons, think a little bit bigger than I'm thinking right now. And whether that's reading a great book or watching that documentary or trying to teach myself a new skill, or it's deal making at a bigger and bigger level and growing a company to a bigger and bigger level, you're constantly having to expand your mind and think differently. Just I've reflected this week on employment challenges and cash flow challenges and executing on a plan and certain divisions being profitable and other divisions being not profitable, which I know about today. But if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have known any of those things because our company hadn't gotten to that point yet where I'd experienced all of those things firsthand. And I could tell you based on client experiences and the way they described it to me in the past, but I hadn't lived it. And so now that's a whole new thing that I've lived and a whole new set of experiences. And I feel like I've expanded my horizons because of it. This past year, in order to accomplish doubling the size of the business again, we had to go from a banking relationship into a private equity, private credit kind of relationship. That was a whole new set of experiences that I got to walk through myself. And I was gung ho in the process that I wasn't going to give anybody any equity in our company. And they all told me it's impossible. And I said, just watch us. We're going to do it. I had to interview 400 firms in the last year to talk to them about giving us the kind of debt that we wanted in our business on the kind of terms that we wanted to have it on, without giving them any equity. And I got 397 no's, but I got 3 yeses. And out of the 3 yeses, we picked the one we wanted to work with. That was such an expansion moment in my career. Like, oh my gosh, like I hoped it was possible, but it was at the end of it. And so it's like anything else. Whenever you're willing to, just push through and push through and push through adversity and keep, steadfast to your vision and your goals, you can accomplish really cool things. So that's what it is for me. I'm trying to learn, and I constantly try to learn and try to push myself a little bit further in life.
Let's dig into the deal a little bit here. Who was this your primary, was that one of your primary responsibilities, is the private credit, going down this route, build the list, 400 people, knock on doors, make phone calls, emails, narrow it down? Was that your primary responsibility? Like, were you the key holder to that process?
Yeah, I couldn't hand that off to anybody else. Mm-hmm. So, there's something great in business where you figure out anything you can hand off, you should hand off, because other people will do it better than you can. But that was one item in business I just couldn't hand off. I had to be the one on those calls actually making it happen.
Yeah. That was my assumption and the reason I'm asking that is, when was the last time you had to make 400 calls and face those kind of questions? Because you have teams, you have acquisition people knocking on doors for you. They pull you in when it's time to write a check or when it's time to do upper level, deal making process or due diligence. But here you are back on the front line, right? Is this a proper assumption, or am I way off?
Oh, you're totally right. I don't write checks anymore. Somebody else writes checks, and they just bring them to me to sign. And I don't write an employment agreement anymore. I interview an employee, and somebody else takes care of all the logistics and those sorts of things. So whenever you have to actually jump in and do the hands-on work, there's something really rewarding about it. Whenever you get to a CEO level or an executive oversight kind of level in your business, you focus so much on vision and planning and board level decisions and that sort of stuff. You get really detached from the things that matter and the actual work day to day. So it was both terrible in terms of the actual work of it and the stress of it, but at the same time, really rewarding to push myself in a whole new way like that.
Did it remind you about, the early days of being, on cold calls and the sales process and being the salesperson, getting 400, no's essentially? Like,
yes.
What did it remind you of, like, back in the day? And has it changed the way you do things with your group now at 400 something employees?
Yeah, it's like all sales, honestly. It reminded me of, all the frontline sales I've ever done in my career. And it's so hard because you have to develop a thick skin and a personality that's willing to trudge through adversity to be successful and really good at sales. Because if you're an order taker in sales and you only take orders whenever they come in, you're not really successful at sales. You're just a person who's taking orders. If you are a person who can go out and face 400 no's until you get a yes, you are a person that can make really remarkable things happen. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of that. I mean, it's definitely something that pushed our company to the next level. Right around, no number 330, I was about ready to throw in the towel and say, I guess it's just not happening. We're not gonna get the company to the level it needs to be. But I hunkered down again, said, nope, I'm going to keep calling, keep having these interviews. And you get a little bit better each time too. Like, your pitch gets a little bit better. And well, here's why that one said no. I'm going to craft that message a little bit differently. And, oh, here's the data that they had a problem with. Let me go model something out to present to the next firm that'll make them look at it in a different way. And you keep refining and honing and doing a better and a better pitch. I bet if I had made the pitch I made to firm number 400 back in the very beginning when I was dealing with firm number 1, I would have had a little more success.
All right. So give us some tips. Give us some, maybe not tips because we're not financial advising here, but like for groups that maybe do want to go down the same path that you did, What did you learn in that process about, pitch number 331, the one that you said, all right, oh, I started to get some traction. I started to learn for people who might want to go down the same path that you did?
Really, really good question. So the biggest thing that you have to be able to do is change what you feel about your company in terms of the way you're going to pitch it. I mean, you got to be able to adapt and understand what they're looking for in terms of the type of business they're looking for and pitch it that way. When I first started out, I pitched us as Kin Capital Partners, a sponsor group that has a platform company that we're growing by acquisition. And probably the first 200, 250 groups that I talked to, they looked at it and said, oh, okay, you're a sponsor-backed business. Here's the criteria we look at for sponsor-backed businesses. And you really don't meet those criteria. And I started to think about that. It's like, okay, well, why? Tell me why that is. And it's like, well, sponsor-backed groups have these rules that you have to apply to. And it's funny, there's all these books written about how sponsor-backed companies work. And a great one's the Private Equity Playbook. I don't know if you've ever read that one, but it's like there's specific rules about how much equity a sponsor group needs to bring into a deal versus how much debt and the way all of it's going to work. And eventually I realized, wait a second, I don't need to present myself as Kin Capital, a sponsor-backed group. I could present us as Stately. We are a group of business people who started a business from scratch, did a few add-on acquisitions along the way, but we're building a national platform. And whenever I made that switch, it went from, oh, you're a sponsor-backed group, but you don't have enough equity to do what you want to do, to now, oh my gosh, look at these, intuitive and really smart guys who are, building a platform from scratch to serve a need that doesn't exist in the market, which is what they all wanted. Like they all want to deal with those. Now we still had the equity challenges that we had to deal with. And that's just because we don't take investors. We don't have LPs or pension funds or anything like that. It's just us.
Yeah. I think that could kind of be boiled down to is the position, right? Is how the presentation, and it's the same thing. You were asking the same thing, but you just took off one hat, one shirt, put on a new shirt. It's the same exact thing, but it changed the criteria of those receiving it. Because the person receiving those 200 calls, they spent 10, 15 minutes with you. You said a few keywords. They opened up their playbook and they said this, right? If A equals, this, then B is the presentation. You just, hey, actually, I am the owner. I'm the sponsor here. So I am the owner. We're owners looking to get this kind of deal. Change the criteria for the next 140 pitches, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I had a really good set of answers that I got probably around call 250 when I got my first yes. But it was yes with an equity warrant. They wanted to own 9% of my company. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. But he gave me a little bit of feedback, which, I don't know if he was being a nice guy or he opened the veil a little bit too much, but he said, I think the challenge you've had is that you presented yourself as a sponsor-backed group. If you had come to market, saying that you were a business owner, a business founder who had grown by acquisition, and you're, executing on an objective, I think you would have had more success. And the really easy answer at that moment would have been, I've got a yes, let me take this deal and roll with it. But then that guy would have owned 9% of my company. And that wasn't the answer I wanted. It was, okay, how do I take that advice, recraft our message, dig in and try again?
Why were you so against giving up a slice of pie?
It's going to be worth so much. And I know everybody thinks that they're growing a business that's going to, grow substantially. We've hit every projection we've had since the very beginning. And everyone we talked to at the beginning told us our projections were pie in the sky and there's no way you don't become $1 billion company in 7 years. And I said, no, we will do it. And here's how we're going to do it. And we've hit every number that we've set along the way. What's funny is if you go to the Silicon Valley, $1 billion valuations are like common out there, all the unicorns that they grow in the Silicon Valley. But their goal is to have $1 billion valuation in year 4, and then $100 million of recurring revenue in year 7. And it's really weird rules out there because all these tech-enabled businesses, you can do things backwards. But I think the rest of America can't grow that way. You can't hit $1 billion valuation in year 4 and 100 million in recurring revenue in year 7. So I thought about it backwards. I said, we need to be at 100 million in recurring revenue in year 4. And then that way we can be on a pace to grow to $1 billion valuation in year 7.
Yeah.
And that's what we're on track to do.
What kind of jobs did your parents have?
So my dad was a lawyer. My mom was a homemaker for 4 rambunctious kids. So I'm the youngest of four kids. I have an older brother and 2 older sisters.
What kind of law did your dad practice?
So he was insurance defense, totally different from what I do. Really good at it. He owned his own firm and had several lawyers working underneath him, but totally different area. My brother's also a lawyer. He's personal injury, so he's on the plaintiff side.
Yeah. What do you think you attribute to being a deal maker? Like, if you go back and you're like, that's the day I knew I wanted to be a deal maker. What was that?
It's hard to know. It's funny because I saw like very vague references to it in movies whenever I was young. You see things like, Pretty Woman and Richard Gere's the deal maker in that movie, and a handful of other movies where you're like, gosh, this is really interesting. And I don't know, I guess to a lot of people, it's not interesting. Like, they see business deals happening and they think it's like just a bunch of paper and garbage that they don't want to deal with. But to me, it's like, I just knew, like, in my gut, that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to do business transactions. It refined over time, though. I don't know exactly when I came to the realization I wanted to help sellers to sell their businesses, because that's probably the best decision I ever made, in terms of deal making. I love working with sellers, working with business owners, especially like ones who founded their business. It's such a cool experience because you've got people who can, like, they think they can accomplish anything, and then they do. And they really dig deep, and they find ways to push themselves to get to the next level. And like, when they're starting up, they don't need a lawyer because I'll figure out the law. And I don't need a CPA because I'll figure out taxes. And I don't need a marketing person because I'm going to figure out SEO. And the people who can do that build really successful businesses. I think the wantrepreneurs, rather than the entrepreneurs, the wantrepreneurs think they've got to hire everybody. I need to start with a lawyer. I need to start with a CPA. I need to start with a marketing person. I need to start with this advisor and that advisor and that advisor, who are all going to do the work for me to grow my business. And like, really great entrepreneurs are the ones who figure out how to do it all. And that's what makes them really successful. Now, once they catch the tiger by the tail, like, they've got to at some point come to the realization that, oh, now's the time that I need advisors. And so that's honestly the biggest challenge dealing with business owners, helping them to figure out that they're at a point they need to start paying for advice and really relying on third parties, because your business isn't sellable if it's built around you. If you've got a business where you are the linchpin, you are the one that has to learn and do everything. Whenever you come see me in my investment bank, I'm going to tell you, look, let's get you through a little exit planning and figure out how to grow your business in the right way so somebody will want to buy it. Best thing you can do as a business owner, once you've reached that level of success and your business can afford it, is to hire the right talent, the right management team, the right advisors, and really grow your business.
Describe a time where you were afraid, like a recent time, maybe in business. Like, describe a time where you're like, oh my gosh, I have no clue what to do in this situation.
Oh, you're catching me off guard with that one. Huh. We're acquiring some equity in our manufacturing partner in Vietnam right now. And this is a whole new frontier for me. I've never owned a foreign business before, but this is a manufacturing business that we have educated on how to build iron and steel doors and windows. And we're helping them to get off the ground and get better and better at it. And we are in the process of becoming an equity owner in that business, a pretty substantial equity owner in that business. And that was one of my business owner moments where I said, I don't have a clue. Like even as a lawyer, I was a corporate lawyer. I really understand how the law works and how business works, but this is an Asian country with a totally different culture. I don't have a clue about all the differences that we're going to have to experience there. And there's the entrepreneur side of me is like the leap before you look kind of guy.
Yeah.
Let me charge headfirst into it. We're going to figure it out afterwards. The more cautionary side of me says, hey, and by the cautionary side, I mean our in-house counsel says, hey, maybe we need to go hire lawyers and really
I am
figure
a
all this
lawyer. I
out.
should be able to know that, right? But it's different law, different practice. So how were you affected? Like, your mental game, right? Like how does that affect you? How does fear affect you? Or maybe a pause. How does that affect the deal maker? And then what were some of the things that you did to maybe change from that mindset to a growth mindset? Because I don't think you could have fear and faith, right, in the same category. And that's what I'm trying to get to is how does someone transition from a fear moment into a growth or faith moment?
Yeah. So I think so many people are guided in life by their fear.
Mhm.
And I'm incredibly blessed because I'm just not. And I don't know, maybe that means I'm a bit reckless, to some. To me, I have a total grasp on what fears I should have, what the concerns are that I should have, and I'm willing to accept a lot of risk in order to, have a growth mindset. I think a lot of people aren't wired that way. It's funny because I've met so many people over time that have told me, I want to do what you do. I really want to do acquisitions. I want to grow a business the way you've grown a business and whatever else. And my answer to them will be, well, let's do it. Like, let's get an idea. Let me help you to figure out how we do it. And there's such a fear in their mind that they'd have to give up what they have in order to do that, that
Yeah.
they don't want to do it. And it's such a good idea, but they don't want to take that leap. I'm just a leap first and figure it out afterwards kind of guy. I always make sure that we've protected our downside, that my family's not going to be left, at the lunch line trying to survive. Like I make sure that we're always able to survive, of course, uh but to me the upside's always worth it, and I'm always on to the next idea and the next idea. And of course, I mean, at some point you've built enough different avenues of money coming in life that you're like, okay, well, the next three or four can fail and it'll be all right. I'm not so worried about it anymore. But along the way, yeah, there were a few of those moments where it's like, you know, the new business venture didn't quite work out as well as you're hoping, and you tell the wife at home like, oh my gosh, let's tighten the belt, whatever, so that we can get into the next thing. And I think it's easiest to find God in life whenever you're in those struggling moments. At least that's what I've always found. Whenever I deal with tragedy or loss, or things haven't worked out the way I hope they'll work out, those are the easiest times in life to say, God, where do I go from here? What did I do wrong? How did I not listen the way I'm supposed to? And how do I better follow your will? How do I, become the man you want me to be, build the business you want me to be, or to build? And it's so easy to hear God's voice in those moments. It's the moments when you get past that and you feel a lot of self-confidence and a little bit of ego, and you start saying, it's okay, God, I don't need I don't need your help.
How do you balance? Oh, I love that. I love where you took this. How do you balance? You got $400 million company on path to $1 billion business, right? You're building it, growing it, running multiple companies, have an awesome leadership team. You're cranking. You have the gift of being with some past experience, education, the support staff, the support. You have the gift of being able to leap, right? So how do you
Mhm.
support that with remaining humble and seeking God's uh, direction, and seeking maybe your wife's opinion or seeking inside counsel? How do you balance that? Because guys like you and me, We see something, we go for it, right? We
Yeah.
could run for it and we could go. How do you balance that? Give us some insights into your brain.
Life humbles you all the time. It's amazing because I think the older I get, like you get a little bit wiser as you get older, or at least, that's how it's supposed to work. Hopefully it's working for me. Uh, as you gain a lot of knowledge along the way and experience along the way, in theory, that confidence is building in the way that you run things. Um, and life always finds ways to humble you. And, I don't think God humbles you on purpose. Like I don't know if that's the way things work. I don't pretend to know what God's doing, but I don't think he's like actively trying to find ways to humble you. But whenever you turn away from him and think that you got everything under control, I don't think he's going to do anything to stop you from getting humbled and coming back to him. And look, I've had that happen plenty of times in life. And I think because you get a little bit older and a little bit wiser and you gain a little bit more knowledge and experience, you start to have this level of confidence that you really have things under control. And, I've picked the right people to work with. I've got the right business partners. I got the right employees. We've got the right vision. We've got the right this and the right that. So much so, you got such a great level of confidence that whenever one of those little building blocks gets yanked out from underneath you, it hurts a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, whenever you're building a small startup and you know that nothing is stable in the foundation, nothing rocks you because like you're just constantly adapting and changing. Whenever you've built a little tower and somebody yanks out the foundation piece, it rocks you a whole lot more. And look, I've dealt with issues like business partners who tried to get a little greedy and take what wasn't theirs, or I've dealt with employees who try to burn the place down on the way out the door for whatever reason they didn't like what we're doing or whatever the case may be. And look, I think a lot of times that has more to do with those people than it does with you. Because I know in my gut we're trying to build things the right way. I know 100% that I'm building a company where the people matter more to me than the profits, where making sure that people have a career for life rather than a job or a gig is sacrosanct. And we're putting the kinds of benefits in place that other companies just don't put in place, and we're growing the kind of culture that makes people really love our company and want to stay here. So that's really exciting, and that fuels me. But it almost like creates an ego of we're doing something great, and any little thing that rocks it's hard because it's a two-edged sword. Life's going to humble you a little bit more whenever you get that self-confidence and certainty that you're doing things the right way. And if you have a solid foundation in the Lord, you always have that to fall back on, and you just keep picking yourself up and trying again. I don't know how people do it whenever they don't have their faith, because what do you fall back on in those times when life humbles you?
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to faith and business, I like to ask this question because I think it's hard and I think it's important for us to kind of process. There's I think a misnomer. If you're a religious or a Christian, then you have to maybe sacrifice excellence because you give a lot of grace, or you or maybe being super kind, right? I interviewed a Christian major Christian investor, and I was like, how do you approach investing in faith? Would you take a big hit financially because it's the Christian thing to do? So how do you kind of manage Christianity and profit? Like how do you find any challenges within that?
Constantly,
How
because
so?
you constantly have trade-offs in business between doing the right thing versus the thing you think you can get away with, or the thing that you can slip past people or whatever. We have that happen all the time. And look, we've got our core values right on our website because we're one of those companies that lives them, believes them. We make our decisions based on our core values. And number one on that list is ethics 360. I mean, 100% of the time, we're going to do the ethical and responsible thing. And it's not just like we're going to say it and it's going to be on the wall. It's well, let's take a beat here and figure out if we're doing things the way we think we should. And for me, that's relying on my faith. I have a guiding set of principles in my faith that I know are going to guide me to do the right thing in life. And for some people, it's being focused on the law. Am I doing the legal thing or am I doing the not legal thing? I don't think that's as good as faith as a foundation, but at least you've got something. But I can't just use my faith as my guiding principle for our company. We've got people of a lot of different faiths in our company. And just because I feel like my faith is really beautiful and strong doesn't mean that I can't respect the faith of the other people in our company as well. And frankly, even if their faith is different than mine, I'm so happy that they have it because it's their guiding principles as well.
The thing that popped in my brain as we near the end of this interview is one, I want to give you an opportunity to let people know where to connect with you. But before we do that, I've got I think one more topic that I need to hit before we move on. You've approached something, you knew there was some task of the business owner yourself that only you can do. Like you couldn't delegate it out. You built pretty good systems, processes, and people to delegate a lot of your work out. But there was this one mission that you had to take the sword and run with it. In the process, you learned a lot that can be parlayed into other business owners that might be looking for something similar. Do you think that those 400 calls, which 390 something of them were failures, could that be parlayed into a service or something or some type of benefit for business owners?
Yeah, I'm positive that it can. Helping business owners to find the right private credit solutions, and I'm sure my team can do that. I got my Final Ascent team to help me with that process to some degree as well. So they've got some experience working side by side with me on that. It's hard. It's what's so difficult in investment banking is I know all the challenges that we could face in deals. Yeah. And I can try on the front end to explain all of that to business owners about how hard this process is. But it doesn't sink in until they start doing it. Yeah. I've got all kinds of analogies. Like I'll tell them that due diligence is like a colonoscopy, and it's like, that puts a funny image in people's mind, like, oh, okay. And then, it's like they'll get 5 or 10% of the way in. They'll be like, oh, this isn't as bad as you described it. And then they get 60 or 70% of the way in, and they're crying for their mama wanting to get out of this diligence process. And then, surprise, diligence is only step one. There's a whole lot more to do after that. It's the same thing on the debt side. I can prepare you that it's going to be really hard to go find the kind of debt you want. I think in my mind, I knew the kind of debt we could get, and I probably set a goal for myself that was unattainable in terms of what I wanted, and I just kept going until I got it. And that might be more of an internal thing for me than a service I can offer to my clients. I'm not sure every one of my clients would be willing to be on 400 calls with me, trying to get that result. I think most of them would give up beforehand. But nonetheless, I learned so much in the process, pushing the limits like that if somebody comes to me and they want market rates on credit, or maybe even a little bit better, it would be a whole lot easier to do that for them because I learned so much through my process.
Yeah, super cool. Jude, where can people go to connect with you and learn more about what you're working on and maybe get involved?
Yeah, so my website is famergers.com. It's, Final Ascent, so famergers.com. Or if you want to email me, it's jude@famergers.com. Love to hear from you. Love to talk to you about your business.
Yeah, super cool. Fellow deal makers, as always, reach out to our guests. Say thanks for being on the show. I hope you've enjoyed these conversations about the deal makers, what makes them tick, how they approach things, how they overcome, how they bounce back. If you have a story that you've gone through and you'd like to share here with our fellow deal maker community, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, we'll talk to you all on the next episode. See you, everybody.